You are listening to the It's Your Time podcast, and I'm your host, Certified Life Coach Michelle Arnold Burke. In today's episode, I'm discussing making a great ask and listening to learn with Lynn Hardin. Welcome to the It's Your Time podcast, the podcast where busy professionals like you get the practical solutions and support you need to gain control of your schedule so you can strive to be the best in your career, but without the stress and overwhelm. If you're looking to increase your energy and decrease your stress, you are in the right place. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast, friends. Here we are with another one of our amazing March lineups. Just as a reminder, my birthday is this month, and I thought it would be so much fun to give you a gift each week and share conversations with powerful women who can help you in a variety of ways. And today, I am sharing a recent conversation with Lynn Hardin. Lynn is a retired principal from public education. She served over 20 years in a large urban school district in Southern California. She built 3 award-winning elementary schools. In fact, she was America's Best Urban School in 2019 and is the recipient of the National Principal Certificate for Equity and Excellence from NCUST. She is a certified life and leadership coach for school administrators. And today, she shared some really great nuggets on how to make a great ask, listening to learn, and the importance of communication in your work and personal life. So, without further ado, please take a listen. Lynn, thank you so much for being here today. Can you start by introducing yourself to the listeners and maybe talk a little bit about who you help and any other goodness that you see fit to share?
Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Lynn Hardin. I am the host of the podcast, the Principal Purpose Podcast. And who I serve is educators who are interested in relieving chronic stress and anxiety so they can live healthier and happier lives. I was a teacher for 5 years and a principal of an elementary school for 19. And today I'm a certified life coach, and who I serve is educators. I coach educators.
Oh, that's so great. And I think it's such an important area for stress and burnout and overwhelm. And I see that theme also in our careers in my industry as well. So I know whatever you have to share is going to be very important today. I know we were going to dive into the topics of how to do a great ask and listening to learn, which I think both are super important, not only in sales. Part of what we do also is teach some of our doctors and patients. So can you maybe talk a little bit about we'll start with the great ask and what that means to you.
Well, a great ask is, I would say that where I learned it was the first time where I learned how to do a great ask was my marriage was in trouble. I was a principal, a leader, very masculine, very demanding type of role. And what I would do is I thought that I was asking for what I needed, but what I was really doing was making demands. I didn't understand what partnership was. And I would say that my husband might have described it as I was nagging more than asking for what I needed. And I really thought that I was just asking for what I needed. So I've always been interested in personal development. And my husband was, I would say he was out the door. He goes, I've been to Vietnam. I've raised children. He goes, I love you, but life is too short to be nagged and not understand what it is that you need or what you want. Really, all he wanted to do was to make me happy. And all he heard was nagging. And so I learned how to do what it's called getting a great ask. And you know where I learned how to do this with is horses, of all things.
Really?
Yeah, horses obviously they don't have language. They're the most spiritual creatures I've ever encountered, and they also are experts at partnership. They are reading they're not listening to the words. They are reading your intention and your vibe and your pressure to ask for what you need. So you cannot be demanding or nagging to a 2,000-pound animal. They'll just stand there and look at you like, what? So what I learned from horses is that you start when you want to ask, you start at kind of a lower, from 1 to 10, a lower pressure, maybe of 3, and you just give a simple statement of is I need, and you give a description of what it would look like or not look like, when or how often, and then you describe what it would provide for you. And then the partnership question is, what do you need to give me what I'm asking for? And then you release. So I'll give an example because this is going to be very foreign, I think, I think it could be foreign to a lot of women who we're culturally taught TV programs. My husband and I were watching a commercial. It's like, there they go, making the man look stupid again because she was complaining coffee's not a breakfast item. And I was like, it's so interesting how in TVs and movies they still pit testosterone brain against estrogen brain and don't honor our differences. So in asking for a great ass, we're honoring differences. So for like, I used to complain or nag about the trash being taken out. It used to just drive me crazy. I have all these big men. I have a husband and 2 sons, and why aren't they taking the trash? Can't they see me standing by this trash, stomping at my feet, or complaining? I would complain a lot. Oh, the trash is horrible. I can't believe I have to take the trash out again. So I did this with one of my boys, and I said, I need the trash taken out. And what it would look like is that pick up the trash out of the trash, take it to the side of the house and throw it into the big bin, and then come back and put a fresh bag in. And what this would provide for me, which was so important, because others want to know, they want to know that you're giving something, what it would provide. And I said, what it would provide for me is a sense of ease, a sense of beauty, a sense of I can't stand the smell and grossness of the trash. So it would give me peace of mind and calm. And then the partnership question. I say, what do you need to give me what I'm asking for? I said, well, just tell me when it's full. Just say, Jonathan, the trash is full. And I have to tell you, to this day, 25 years later, I've never taken the trash out. And it's evolved into, now it's interesting, when Jonathan comes into the house, he just kind of checks the trash on his own now. But
Oh
if I
my
want
God.
it taken out, all I have to ask is, because that's what he needed from me, not nagging, not a demand. So it's about having that conversation. So that's
I
how you
think
start a great ask.
yes, and it's so important. You touched on a few things. I think initially my brain for the great ask went to work stuff, but
Uh-huh.
I love incorporating professional and personal information here. And I think so many women also just think, or at least I'm speaking for myself, they
Mm-hmm.
should know, right? Like they should know that the garbage is overflowing. So just take it out. I shouldn't have to ask you to do that. So I think it's important what you're offering up, like a very simple process to be able to get more of what you want. And to your point, if your husband wants to make you happy, like why not have that communication so that he has that information?
And because you and I, as women, an estrogen brain, in utero, our little brains were soaked in estrogen, whereas my husband's little brain was soaked in testosterone. So we actually have very different brains, and we perceive things different, we process things differently, we take in things different. So you and I speak hint. Michelle, I could hint, I could not say it. I could say, my favorite flower is tulips, and you would know to get those for my birthday. Okay? Men do not speak hint. They don't hint. So the way this translates professionally is to honor who you're talking to. I mean, sometimes, and there's the male and female brain, but there's also masculine and feminine. So I would use this in work. I would honor who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to another woman or a young girl, I know that I don't really have to be, I can just kind of hint around, and we talk over each other. Whereas if I'm talking to a young student who is a man, or I'm talking to a male teacher, I need to be add a few more details, but not too many, and be very specific about what I need. But then also ask them what they would need to get what I'm asking for.
That is so important. I love that. And I think on the flip side of that, then is also the listening part, right? Listening to learn. So, can you maybe expand on how you teach that also?
Yes, I do. The way we traditionally listen, and I think you see a lot of it right now in the news, and you also see, oh, I had this fantasy that if even there's such a divide politically, if we used more listening to learn, we might be able to come together a little bit more. But this is how the survival brain listens. And I'll do a little bit of anthropology 101 is that we, or neurology or neuroscience 101, I mean, not even 101, like kindergarten level. We have parts of our brain. There's one part that is, it's the most primitive part of our brain that is all about survival. This part of our brain is constantly looking for danger, movement, wind, anything, any kind of movement, any kind of danger, any kind of challenge, anything hard, anything that could be a problem. And it's going to have us either run from it, fight for it, fight with it, or freeze in order to survive. And we have very developed survival primitive parts of our brain because those our ancestors who didn't have it, they didn't
They are no longer with
they
us.
didn't make it. So as it's been passed down, we have keen survival brains. All right. And but we really don't here in the last 100 years, we really don't live in a culture that's that dangerous. However, this part of our brain is still looking for a job. It's still looking for problems. It's still looking for challenge. It hasn't died off or atrophied like maybe, I don't know, some of our appendixes are, or there's, that hasn't happened. If anything, it's more keen and more interested. And then we have the other part of our brain, a prefrontal cortex, which has to do with creativity and logic and analysis and coming up with solutions. Well, this is what happens when, because we're all human, nobody rises above that. We're listening to someone talk. And the way we listen is from a survival part of our brain. Do I agree or do I disagree with what they're saying? Because if we agree, okay, I'm safe. There's not going to be a fight. There's not going to be an argument. Nobody's going to pull out a club and hit me over the head and say you're an enemy. We listen to, we agree or disagree. Now, if we disagree with what they're saying, our survival part of our brain just explodes. And we get a rush of cortisol, we get adrenaline, we get fear, we get stress, we get anxiety because we've triggered our very survival. There's a part of our brain, because I don't agree with what you're saying, that really believes I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And I do believe that that's some of our problems right now as we discuss differences. So, what do you do about it? Instead, well, there's no way to stop listening if you agree or disagree because it is hardwired. We're hardwired that way. Notice, am I agreeing or disagreeing with what they're saying? Because you'll feel the emotion, you'll feel the stress, you'll feel the anxiety. You'll want to get away. You'll want to tell them to shut up or, stop talking. No, I don't agree with this. Notice that you're doing that. And B, give yourself grace, give yourself forgiveness. Just, my brain's trying to keep me alive. Thank you very much. Then there is to listen to learn. You may not agree or disagree with what they're saying, but underneath it, this person is telling you their story. They're telling you something about themselves. They're telling you what their innate values are. They're telling you what their experiences may be. They're telling you what's important to them. And So I'm trying to think of some difficult conversations that, because we in my family we have every political gamut, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, liberal, conservative. So, but we are all able to come together at a table because we're listening to learn. Like my son, it doesn't even matter what he was talking about. I know that I don't have those same thoughts or that same agreement, but what I was hearing him say, what was important to him. What was important to him was honesty. What was important to him was justice. What was important to him was the freedom to express whatever it is that he wanted to express. And when I came at it from that way, I was able to see him, to hear him, to love him, to respect him, and to value him instead of in that survival brain where I'm like, stop talking, stop
Right.
talking. You don't know what you're talking about. So that is listening to learn. Basically, rather than agree, disagree, you listen for what is underneath the surface.
And I have to imagine, because you mentioned difficult conversations, that being a leader for so many years, you must have implemented this in even the professional setting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you have to have those hard conversations about, someone's made a mistake or you need something different from them or there's something that's unsatisfactory in their performance. I um, I would notice that they were agreeing or disagreeing with what I had to say, and but I would listen, and then it helped me guide my conversation by seeing what was underneath, what was there first, just to notice that they were triggered and upset, and honor that and let that be in the space. And then as they continue to talk, to use what was it not I wouldn't say use, but to integrate in my conversation what was important to them, what was the value that was hurt, what how do they feel disrespected, and to use that or to incorporate that to guide the conversation.
And then would you say also, in those leadership positions, difficult conversations, you circle it back to using the ask, doing the great ask? Like once you listen to learn and you
Absolutely.
give feedback.
Yeah, I would, especially in student discipline, actually, I used all of these because these are communication tools. I use this in every aspect of the job. And then after listening and maybe after allowing the cortisol and adrenaline and just being okay that they are activated, that they're unhappy and not feeling threatened by it. Because that's another thing. The survival brain can get upset that somebody else is upset. But just staying grounded and listening and honoring and giving grace to both of us, and then being able to say, I hear what you're saying. This is what I need. I need this to happen. And this is what it will provide. Like this, I need this change to happen in your behavior or instruction. And what it will provide is a more positive school culture, will build relationships within your team. So I let them know what I need, and it might even be very specific with when you speak to this person, use more listening rather than words, and think before you speak. I might be more specific. I'm drawing a blank on an example, but I would be very specific about what I needed, and then what it would provide: positive school culture. And then I asked them, is there anything you need from me to get what I'm asking for? And
Yes.
I got to tell you, I never was able to guess what they needed. I would have always guessed wrong. That was not the time to lay a bet on what they were saying because each one of us is so unique. And I would honor that. I would,
I,
whatever it is they needed, because that's partnership.
and I think that's so important. The two things, kind of, right? That we can't expect people to read our minds, and we can also not be expected to read their minds, right? That is the communication process. And I know both of us are big into communication. Sometimes people say maybe me a little bit too much, but I do think it's so important to keep everyone on the same page. Can you
Mhm.
maybe speak to how you think communication skills and tools really help people not only to excel in the career, but maybe to decrease some of that stress and overwhelm because you've talked a lot about the cortisol levels. And I
Mhm.
think when we communicate more, like we can take it all down a notch.
I thank you. I think it has to do my what I would call emotional intelligence is that communicating, even communicating with yourself, just being aware of what you're thinking, and if it is a safe person, and if it is your boss, hopefully I would think that you develop that kind of relationship. You can express what your thoughts are, but then communicating what you are feeling and communicating with even yourself what it is that you're feeling, and just letting it be there, letting it be, letting it what does it taste like, what does it feel like, where is it in my body? Like if you're in a meeting, if you're in a meeting and you're triggered by something, I hate that word triggered, but I can't think of another word. You have a reaction to what somebody else says or does. Before you express yourself and communicate in any way, because nobody likes to be come at with a lot of a number 10 energy. I gotta tell you, horses do not, especially, but no one does. And you say, I am upset, I'm angry, I'm frightened, whatever it is, and give yourself that time, because emotions are just vibrations. Nobody died from a feeling. No one has ever died. You're in the medical field, right? Nobody, every physician here would tell you nobody's ever died from a feeling. But you can, what is it? I'm feeling angry. Where is it in my body? This is literally 30 seconds. Where is it in my body? What color is it? What shape is it? What does it look like? It's just a vibration. Allow it to be. And the higher your emotional intelligence is, the more apt you are to be comfortable with emotions and let them just pass through. Your communication will improve 1,000% because you're not expressing yourself with emotions that just needed to pass through and didn't need to be in the conversation.
I love that. And I think one of the themes that you've talked about in all of the questions is just allowing those moments, right? To be able to like gain some self awareness and to be able to allow the grace for both yourself and the person that you're communicating with. That's so important. And I think, especially in this industry, it's like a busy badge of honor. So everybody's like going, 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 going. Like, just take a minute. 30 seconds, you just said, not even a minute.
That's all. And I've been doing a lot of research on chronic stress and anxiety. And stress and anxiety on their own aren't necessarily bad things, but it's when it becomes chronic. And one of the simplest ways to prevent it from becoming chronic is taking moments to be still. Be still and be present. You see how it just shifted for you and I? Because we were present and still. And it doesn't have to be hours and hours like a Buddhist monk. It can literally be just a minute or two. Just take a pause and be still. And
I
that does
think
allow those emotions to go through.
Yes. And I think that's so important for people to hear because I know when I first started this and people talked about slowing down in order to speed up and just take a minute. And I'm like, I don't have a minute to do that. Like, you people are crazy. But now I have also like seen the research and seen clients have such great results. And it's so important that we do that for not only ourselves, I think, but like for everyone else around us to benefit, just to take the minute.
I had a teacher in my last school who was very interested in mindfulness. And we always had growth mindset versus fixed mindset, but it wasn't mindfulness. It was more like a bulletin board thing in a book that you got in professional development. I would not say that it was, no, that's the truth. and, but she began her day with her students with it was a kit that she had for kids on mindfulness, and they would take a moment to transition where they would be still, and she would read a very short 1 or 2 sentence meditation so that the entire space, the container, all the kids, everyone was present and still, and then they began their day.
Oh, that's so
And her
good.
behaviors, it impacted the academics. It really impacted her student behaviors. It was such a simple tool that that when the survival brain is in, you need to run, there's a saber-toothed tiger chasing you, it's very difficult to tell that brain, okay, take a pause, take a moment, be still. And yet what happens when we do that is we move from the primitive brain into the prefrontal cortex and we get present. And that's where all the goodies live. That's where all the solutions, creativity, inspiration, logical next steps. So if I can give your listeners any motivation, that's where the goodies are. If you can just stop, be still, your brain will shift.
And I think it's important too that you're pointing out it does not have to be that you sit there all day and just stare out the window. Starting with 1 minute, and Dareen Hardy talks about that in the compound effect, is that it will just eventually add up. And I was just taking a Peloton ride recently where they talked about Keystone habits, which reminded me of this, what you're talking about for the teacher, where if you start implementing one little habit, the effect that it has on so many other areas of your life, like her taking a moment for the mindfulness and that being reflected in the academics, like that is the goodies, right? That's where it all
Yeah,
is. Oh, that's so good.
absolutely.
Have we missed anything here today?
No, gosh, we've covered a lot. No, this was fun. Thank you.
There's so much. I love it. And we will put all of the links in the notes, but where can people find you for more information?
Well, my name is Lynn Hardin, Lynnhardin. I'm on Instagram as Lynn Hardin. I'm on Facebook as Lynn Hardin. I do have a website that's Lynn Hardin. And I work with educators for chronic stress and anxiety, specifically helping school leaders help with retention of their teachers and to improve their positive school environment. Because remember, the survival brain, if you stay there long enough, you're going to run so far you quit your job. So
Mm.
I support them and support teachers in staying. And for many of us, this is our life purpose. So I'm there, and I also have a podcast called the Principal Purpose Podcast. And I don't talk to educators necessarily. I'm talking from people, men and women from all industries, because I think that we're all having the same human experience and we can learn from each other and certainly learn from other industries.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. I feel like that work is so important across the board. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, there you go. Lots of amazing information from Lim. And I really love the idea of using all of these skills in your personal and professional life. It is so important that we know what we want, both aspects of our lives to look like, and live in a way that exemplifies it. So be sure to reach out to Lynn, www.lynnhardin.com. And as always, I will have the links in the show notes, and I would love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. So please tag me on Instagram at Michelle Burke Coachin and let me know what resonates. Okay, that's what I have for you today. Take what works, leave what doesn't, and let's meet back here next week for another opportunity for transformation. Make it a great day. Take care. Did you know you can take this work to a deeper level with me one-on-one? Go to michelleburkecoaching.com and click on Get Started to begin.